All right, family, it's Wednesday, so we're going to get into a new episode of Wednesday Reads. I read black comics and kind of introduce you to. I don't read the whole thing because why? I want you to buy it. I want you to support this expression of African American, the African diaspora, you understand, culture. All right, that's what I'm about. That's the point of this show. I buy books almost every week, and I could just, just read them, whatever, but I don't know. I consider myself almost like an evangelist of this kind of art form. Why? For three reasons. One, it's an expression of us managing our own image in the world. If you look to Hollywood and keep, doing that diversity kind of thing, you're always going to get a two-dimensional representation of yourself. All your heroes are going to be ex-cons. You know what I mean? They're going to be, they might even be a king in some far off place that you can't relate to. Right. But of course, I got my, is it a DVD? It is a DVD of, like the animated movie, Black Panther and whatever. And they had spears with like computer chips on them. Wakanda. Y'all get excited about that shit. Oh, man. And that was just a few years ago. Anyway, so let's move on. I'm going to talk about Purge, the protector of the paradigm. Dun, 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 dun. All right, you can find it on kid-comics.com, kid-comics.com, right? The creator is Roosevelt Pitt, and you can find his interview that I did with the brother on jonathansoul.com. All right. This brother has been doing this comic book thing at least since the late 80s, 90s. And at the peak of his publication history back then, they were selling millions of copies per title. Millions of copies. All right, so let's get into it. So he's back in the game again. The thing I really love about Roosevelt, of course, is he's a great team builder. And so he pulled some terrific writers, artists, and to pull this thing together. When you first get right now, it's on PDF. It'll be available soon on print. And the first thing that pops out is the cover. The Zong brothers, right? X-O-N-G. The Zong brothers did a hell of a job. I mean, when I look at this, I mean, I mean, man, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I've never seen nothing like this come out of DC and Marvel. The colors are electric. I mean, it's just mad boss. And that's just one of the artists in this book. Another artist is this brother. Let's see here. He did the pencils. Mashindu Kumba, a legendary artist in the African American community. Legendary. He has some panels on this. Also, Keithan Jones, the proprietor of Kid-Comics, another fantastic artist. I actually have one of the posters, Power Nights, that I got when I ordered the books. I'm putting them on foam core to put up on my wall. Fantastic art. His art is kind of like Mashindu is kind of almost like a fine artsy, painterly kind of a vibe, right? You know what I mean? Like if Rembrandt did comics, you smell me? You know, kind of thing. And then Keithan is in that kind of DC Comics, Marvel Comics tradition. You know, my favorite artists were like John Byrne. What's the other brother? George Perez. What's the other brother that did Spawn? You know who I'm talking about, the white brother. But yeah, so that kind of vibration. And then, of course, Larry Stroman. I first came into contact with his artwork on this, I guess like a black version they did of Sherlock Holmes. Holmes and Watson and Holmes. And, very strong artist he did. So those are the artists that did pencils and inks on this. The Zong brothers did the colors. And then, of course, the writers, there was Roosevelt Pitt Jr., who's the creator and writer. And then there was C.R. Ward, who does edits over at Kid-Comics. He also assisted on the script, as did Vince White. So Roosevelt pulled a hell of a team together, hell of a team. All right, then let's keep going. So we do a flashback first, right? A flashback where we see this little kid running. And it's kind of funny because, you know, when I did the interview with Roosevelt, I was like, damn, this is kind of timely because during that period, it was that thing, you know, still happening. You know what I mean? Which, anyway, still happening. But, you know, stories about kids disappearing and so forth. And so he touches on that here. There's a little boy with locks that's running through the city, and he's being chased by, it looks like, it could be cops. It could be a paramilitary group. But, you know, they're almost like hunting him. They're almost like hunting him. And so the little kid runs through the city. And for a split second, it almost looks like you can see his parents like in the distance. But he's been kidnapped like for a long time, and he's been constantly escaping. And, you know, right when he's trying to figure out whether he should try to even make contact or not with this couple like in the distance, pow, he gets hit over the head. He gets hit over the head and gets taken back into custody by these devils. By these devils. So anyways, that's just like a flashback, right? And then there's other panels. I'm not going to get deep into it. Why? Because once you get the book, where parents are going to the police station and then they're being interviewed by cops and stuff. And this is where you get to see some of Machindo's work. It's like, gee whiz. I mean, did he paint this on canvas? Jesus H. Christ. Wow. You know what I mean? It's just incredible. So, and then in the story, now let me tell you, there's like a little kind of I don't know if you call it a prologue. I don't know if that's the right term, but it's very, I don't want to say like, you know how in the Twilight Zone, the black and white series back in the day, that Rod Serling kind of had, you know, this kind of oomph to his, you know, very ironic kind of. That's what's happening here in these little in the little, you know, in the setup to this first part. I mean, it's just it just gives you a sense of danger, and it's like it's just this dope little kind of, I don't know, prologue. It's very heavy, and it runs throughout the first section of the book. And so what's happening is these kids are being kidnapped, and then this group of people are trying to stay underneath the radar. And so we're kind of seeing things from, you know, here, this little, I don't know, soliloquy is kind of coming from their perspective. It's just heavy. There are layers and layers and layers to this book. You know what I mean? There are layers to this book. All right, so then let's just bounce. So that was 23 years into the past. We're going to bounce to the future. Oh, by the way, in this book, you'll see covers for the other comics that are available on kidcomics.com. The Dragonfly is one of them. There's another one called Vegas Baby, which I got the digital. I got to get the print. So great art, great stories. Definitely check out all the titles on Kid-Comics. All right, so we keep going. And so we see this guy in this suit and this high-tech ship flying around chasing bad guys. And this is Purge. And if I didn't say that in the beginning of the book, in the beginning of my little review, I'm talking about Purge. I'm talking about Purge. So Purge is this kind of self-made millionaire, IT tech kind of guy. He lives and operates out of the town called New Salem, North Cackalack. Okay, for the non-hip out there, that's North Carolina. And New Salem used to be Winston-Salem. And I can really dig this because I was born in Durham, North Carolina, a.k.a. North Cackalack. And so anyway, so this brother is just chasing down these bad guys. And of course, technology is really like a major environmental piece in Purge. This New Salem city is kind of like a future city. It's kind of like the high-tech Mecca. They've resolved a lot of their economic issues and their race issues and all that kind of stuff. All that kind of has been resolved, through a lot of progressive thinking and technology and the whole nine. But there's still some outliers that need to be checked. And this is where Purge comes in. So we look at, he's bouncing around and he's fighting these guys and so forth. And everybody has these high-tech suits and these high-tech weapons. And it's really good. And again, the dialogue is cool, but it's just action-packed. I mean, there's very little static cells in this comic. You know what I mean? Very little cells. And it's funny, you know, when we see these guys battling, it seems like they all know each other. They've run into each other before. There's all kinds of technology being used, portals, you know, energetic weapons that are being used, technology that kind of disables somebody else's tech, and so forth. And as much as these guys are fighting physically, they're also using their intelligence. And throughout this fight, Purge is carrying on a conversation with his AI. Everybody's familiar with the how the AI kind of gained the personality with Jarvis back in the day, you know, with the Iron Man movies, and you know, he had different versions of that. Well, he has a AI too. As a matter of fact, in Black Sun, another groovy comic that I have a comic book walkthrough, I guess I would call this thing, a Wednesday read coming up. His protagonist has AI too. Her AI has locks. His AI has locks. It's really cool. You know, it's funny to take something that could have been like a background character and then make it, you know, a supporting character. So so he goes through, he ends up battling a bounty hunter and so forth, and he takes him down or whatever. And then, you know, well, he takes him down temporarily, and then they escape. And so he has to track him, and that's something that he'll deal with down the line. Now, that's just one half of Purge. You know, when he's not bouncing around as a superhero, he's known as Richard Kincaid. Richard Kincaid is an inventor, businessman, and I would say like a city father almost. I mean, he seems to have a lot of influence in what goes on in New Salem. And he started the Kincaid Computer Analytics Corporation. All right. I guess it's one of the biggest companies in New Salem. And so he has this other, you know, I guess you would call it a civilian life, where he's this big inventor. And so, you know, we kind of, you know, find him walking into his company. He's late for a meeting, as, you know, there's even CP time in the future. But he's using it strategically. He's using it strategically. And so stop. Now, if you look at this art and the character design, I can't emphasize enough that the Zong brothers did a hell of a job. Hell of a job. The colors, like I said, electric. Of course, I like the blue. You know, it's kind of funny. It almost reminds me of like the lens flares in the re-up Star Trek films. You know, the kind of bluish white light that they always use, which can be annoying sometimes. But here, I mean, we get it in a printed cell, and it freaking works. And I'm excited to get the print, but this is one of those books to me that's made for an iPad, that's made for a Kindle, that's made for your smartphone, because paper is not going to backlit these colors the way, of course, we see it here. So let's keep going. So he eventually has a business meeting, and he's doing his bid and talking to world leaders, and he's using, you know, New Salem, you know, as like his showpiece for a lot of his technology, and we get some exposition about what New Salem is putting down. And you know, after the meeting, you know, he steps away for a minute. He's going to take a break, and there's some things that happen, which I'm not going to show you why, because I want you to buy the book. And we get a flashback to his past a little bit or whatever, and keep moving forward. He's back in costume again. He's talking to some people that he tracked earlier. I guess he put a bug on a villain that got away. He lost one of his quarry to a bounty hunter, but it was just a temporary loss, because he's communicating with him now. And you can see like a headshot of his AI. It's kind of cute, you know what I mean? And yeah, so this is one of those books that you can give your kids. It's something that'll keep them engaged. And there's some Easter eggs that I found in the book. One of them was there was a scene, which I'm not going to show you now, because why? I want you to buy the book. Once you go to kid-comics.com and get the book. But there was one where a politician was attacked. And while she was attacked, some papers fell on the floor. And me, I'm nosy. I just happened to zoom in on the papers. This is something you can't do, with paper. And if you're over 40, you can't do a paper, baby. But I zoomed in on my computer and I saw that it was Kennedy's executive order to start issuing money backed by precious metals and take us off the Federal Reserve, which is in some quarters, they say that's why Kennedy was murdered. It wasn't because, just some rogue person shooting a boomerang bullet. It was actually because he was going to take us off the Federal Reserve, which is a private bank, yada, yada, yada. So I was like, that's kind of dope. You know what I mean? What other Easter eggs do I find in there? So, Purge. This is a book you got to have in your collection if you're serious about comics, and particularly if you're serious about Black comics. These guys have years in the game. They have layers. And what I see here is a masterpiece. And I can't wait and this is just part 1 of 6, right? I guess the story arc is called Past Unspoken. And so we get more of the backstory of Purge because, the character Richard Kincaid, Purge, has a gap in his memory. He has a gap in his memory. He was a kid 1 minute, going through these different changes, running away from these devils. And then he was a man. You know what I mean? There's this whole gap. I mean, he put himself together. He pulled himself up. And he was able to, to make something beautiful out of his life. But this gap is annoying, and he has to figure out what's going on. So anyway, that's your brief Wednesday Reads Introduction to Purge. Go over and pick it up. Right now, it's in PDF form at this recording. You can pick it up over at kid-comics.com. And keep checking back because I'm sure in a little while the paper will be available, and you can cop that as well. Love you guys. Hope all our dreams come true. Stay focused on my little YouTube channel, and go to jonathansoul.com where you can hear interviews of the artists that I talked to, past and present, and folks in between. And I have a novel that I wrote, Malcolm Mars. 3 families, take their three families go to Mars to escape the violence and racism of Earth. 3 engineers that was building a starship on Saturdays, and some shit went down, and then they had to get out of Dodge, and so they decided to go to Mars instead of Cuba. I know it's a long story, and you should read it. So you can go over and you can catch that not only on jonathansoul.com, but you can catch it over on Amazon. All right, love you guys. Hope our dreams come true. Follow me on social media, JOHNATHANSOUL on Twitter and Tumblr, and Jonathan Soul on YouTube. All right, love you guys. Peace.